Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight, we're back here with Phantom Strider. This just released today, actually. This is the 10 worst Nintendo failures. So, yeah, I know Josh already done this one, but I'm saving that for the next one. So, anyway, might as well see what Josh or Strider thinks about this one. So, hope you guys enjoy. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Let me know if you guys agree or not. Let's go.
Howdy.
Heyo.
Nintendo's a funny company. You wouldn't think it now, but there have been times they have circled the drain of failure, only to come swinging back with a new idea to rock the world. They like to experiment, and of course with experiments come tremendous train wreck failures. And today I'd like to chat with you about some of these failures. These failures can include their game consoles flopping, disastrous business deals, or just their cruel and uncaring behavior to many fans. So let's check out Nintendo's 10 biggest failures. And just a heads up, just because some of these ideas failed, that doesn't necessarily mean they were bad ideas. For example, I love the Wii U, but it didn't sell well at the time it was made. That doesn't make it bad, but it does make it interesting.
They had some great
but
games
enough
for
explaining.
it. No?
On to the countdown. For number 10 we have the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con Drift. So imagine you're playing a game on your Switch, but then suddenly you're not playing and the game is still playing itself. What's going on?
Who is that tugging on my control stick?
No, your Nintendo isn't
Not your
haunted by
ghost.
3 ghosts of Xmas Past. You're simply experiencing the Joy-Con Drift effect. Joy-Con Drift is arguably the most infamous issue of all of the Switch's problems, and it has plagued the Nintendo Switch since I first sat out at the midnight launch in 2017. The Joy-Con Drift creates this weird illusion that a phantom thumb is tugging on your controls without you doing anything. Without your permission, it may be moving the character in the game for you. But despite this being a massive ongoing issue for Switch users, there is still no concrete solution. And it's been over 5 years. And people have not been happy about this issue continually interrupting their games. Let's see what the general opinion is on the Joy-Con Drift effect. When commenting, Joseph said,
I've had to buy 2 new sets in response to the drift issue. All well and good Nintendo offering repairs, but I have a child screaming blue murder. So I ended up forking out as it's the quickest solution. Very disappointed in the durability. It wouldn't be so bad if the controllers were reasonably priced, but they aren't.
No, there's some.
I can relate to this problem as we pay about $80 for a new pair of Joy-Cons in Australia. And what about Paul? What does he say?
Sticks work for a while, man. The drift starts to occur and it just gets worse and worse. My kids
And
are
that's
growing
why I
up
normally
in
just
an
stick with
era
a Pro
where the
Controller.
word Nintendo means it might work this time or it might frustrate you.
Not the most glowing review for the issue. We can see here that this is a big enough problem that it's affecting the reputation of Nintendo. What does Tito say?
Oh,
I have 2 Joy-Cons and
It's
both
Sam
of them are
from
drifting
Doldrama.
upwards within less than a year. Utterly overpriced garbage.
So with public opinion so
harsh,
negative,
but
what has
yeah.
Nintendo done to fix this problem? Well, they have of course released a list of troubleshooting tips. You know, the usual obvious junk like check your controllers are connected correctly. Have you tried updating your Switch? You can also reset button mapping. Failing these useless tips, or should the issue continue to get worse, which many users say it does, Nintendo has offered to repair Joy-Cons for free. But keep in mind, this does mean you're without a controller for a few weeks. And if you have a younger gamer in the family, they may be less patient than you are about waiting. I mean, to be fair, that is really annoying. I don't want to wait a full month either. But I can barely get my niece to wait 20 seconds to set up the Switch. How can I expect her to wait 3 freaking weeks to play it? The Joy-Con Drift effect is easily among the most annoying, game-breaking issues the Switch has faced. And at number 9 we have the Nintendo copyright system.
I can't upload my videos. Nintendo keeps copyright striking me. I give up. I'm terminating my channel.
While not everyone goes that far, Nintendo is notorious for bullying anyone who uses even a smidge of their intellectual property. One example is the company Colossal, who made a mobile game and was slapped by Nintendo with a $42 million lawsuit.
Jesus!
Why? Because apparently the game had kinda similar controls to the Nintendo DS. You see, you could swipe over the screen to attack with the Nintendo DS, and the joystick motion Colossal had in their game was kinda similar to that. And apparently that was all Nintendo needed to claim copyright infringement. And as the trial went on, Nintendo increased the claim to $92 $30 million. What freaking
Please tell me you
chance?
dropped it.
Luckily, Coloppal is a big company. In the end, they were forced to pay about $30 million. Not enough to bankrupt a big company like that. But let's look at some smaller fry.
Fair,
What about
but
this Metroid fan game? The fans released
yeah,
a demo
Metroid
of the
2.
game, and once Nintendo found out about the game, they filed a cease and desist to them before they
Yeah.
could even release
Oof.
the full game. In another case closer to home, Nintendo's
boy.
team targeted an online creator.
Etika-themed
He was selling
Joy-Cons.
Etika-themed Joy-Cons for charity. And Nintendo was like, what's that you say? For charity? Oh, get the lawyers, we gotta shut that bum down. And these are just a few of many, many cases over the years. Nintendo has a no-tolerance policy for anything that is even kinda sorta copyright infringement. You probably already know this, but copyright is basically a piece of law that protects the original author of their original content. It stops others obtaining their work and redistributing it as their own. It's a good thing in theory.
Quick question. Are they basing it off the Japanese copyright laws or our laws of copyright strikes? Like, if it's down in Japan, then yeah, I think it'd be a lot different if they were claiming here. And again, I'm pretty sure they do follow it and still try anyway. Like, I'm not sure they're just trying to scare them to stop, but why? I mean, yeesh, dude, we're trying to be, appreciative of your stuff. Don't punish us for it.
But large companies can absolutely abuse this. Personally, in my 9-year history on YouTube, I've seen about 15 false copyright strikes. 3 of them managed to shut down my channel for a while before I could counterclaim it. Though honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if up till now you thought copyright was just a way to bully people. You can still use an author's original content if it falls under fair
to be
use.
honest,
Fair use includes if you're using the content for criticism,
that, but
parody,
just
teaching,
mostly
or maybe
demonetization,
research.
to be
Over
honest.
the years, so many have fallen victims
Again,
to
mostly
Nintendo's
stick it to,
copyright
live
lawsuits
streams,
and
so-
takedowns. That being said, some have been very legitimate and Nintendo just crushes them like a bug, such as over 80 factories in China being targeted for producing unlawful game devices. Going back even further, in 1994, Nintendo even intercepted a shipment of bootleg Game Boy games. And they were particularly mad in this case. So they did what any decent game company would do. They destroyed and flattened the cartridges with a steamroller. I'm serious, they did that. But a giant
we got the
steamroller is
photos
a
here,
weirdly
holy
apt
crap.
analogy to describe Nintendo's copyright system. It's a bummer a company that brings so much joy can be so horrible about copyright.
bootlegs,
And
but
if you're a
for fan
consumer of
stuff?
Nintendo,
Yeesh.
I think it's something worth keeping in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And at
yeesh.
number 8 we have Nintendo accessories. Nintendo
Oh
has
boy.
been in the game for some time, and sometimes the game needs more. Or at least Nintendo wants to sell you some stupid add-on you don't
the
need.
Power
So
Glove.
Nintendo has innovated and accessorized over the years. Some have been useful, such as Nintendo Switch Pro controller or the Joy-Con wheel. But for every one useful Nintendo accessory, there are 5 funky, silly,
What is
pointless
that? A
ones.
digit?
Or accessories that just didn't hit the market.
Wait,
Some of the most
Vitality Center?
notorious failures include the Speedboard,
Speedboard?
Power Glove, Rob, U-Force, and the Vitality Sensor. And joining me to talk
Vitality
about these
Center,
is a
what?
Nintendo expert and a good friend of mine, Luigi Fan.
Hiya, Josh. So the Speedboard is definitely of the pointless variety of accessories. It was essentially a piece of plastic that was meant to hold the NES controller, allowing the user to press buttons quicker and more efficiently, I guess? But as gamers like AVGN
Why?
have demonstrated, it arguably makes it more difficult. The accessory was poorly received by the gaming community, and it was quickly discontinued just months after its release. The Speedboard is often ranked among the worst video game accessories of all time.
What is
Then
the
there
point?
were also innovations such as the Power Glove.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
And he means really bad. Released in 1989, it was a glove that was meant
Freddy
to work like a
spooked it.
controller.
That's bad.
If your controller
By the way,
was
that's Freddy
broken and
Krueger.
reversed and sporadically doing random things. It had NES controller buttons on the forearm, but the user could also control the game using their arm motions. In concept, it sounds pretty cool, but as you may have heard from James and other gamers, actually using the glove was a frustrating, terrible experience. And 2 whole games were designed for this glove. 2 whole games. Woo! These 2 games games were the only way to play with a Power Glove without it feeling horribly broken, and they never took off. So ultimately, the Power Glove failed. Another accessory was Rob the Robot.
Ooh, Rob! I have 2 of these, actually. Rob was a toy robot which released way back in 1985. Nintendo thought that Rob would provide a unique and sophisticated experience in gaming, but Rob only worked with 2 games, so Rob was quietly discontinued a few years later. In my own experience, I found Rob works okay, but he's pretty slow with game inputs. He's very experimental, but that Rob design remains so iconic.
I know, right?
Sure,
Rob
I mean, he's in
looks
Smash
really
Bros.
cool, and I like the concept of him. He's an aesthetically cool-looking side visual to the
You're
NES. It's a shame good old Rob failed so badly and was never attempted again. Then there was the U-Force. By Jeebus the U-Force. And with marketing like this, who wouldn't want the U-Force?
Introducing U-Force, the revolutionary controller for your Nintendo.
So hot, no one can
hot,
touch
no
it?
one can touch it. Now you can feel the power without touching a thing.
And indeed, the U-Force is a controller you don't even touch. It apparently used a power field that was meant to respond to your body movements, making you the control pad. Except, well, it didn't work very well. MSN reviewed this accessory, saying,
Second only to the Sega Activator in terms of all-out crappiness. The U-Force uses infrared sensors to create a truly nightmarish controller. The adverts of the device say don't touch, and this was a rare example of advertising that was spot on.
But perhaps one of the weirdest accessories Nintendo produced was the Vitality sensor. It was a finger attachment for the Wiimote that was meant to monitor users' bodily functions. Apparently it was meant to help players relax, somehow. But it was never specified how it was going to achieve that. Maybe it played harp music, I don't know. But shortly after it was announced, the Vitality sensor just fell off the face of the planet. It's still not fully understood what the Vitality sensor was actually meant to do.
You haven't forgotten the weirdest accessory, right?
What? Oh, you mean the gas thing? Yeah, the weirdest one of all had to be the Game Boy Pedicidate. Basically, it was a Game Boy headset placed on a child before surgery. The device connected to a Game Boy and had a piece to go over the child's nose. And as they play their Game Boy, nitrous oxide would come out the headset to put the child to sleep. Okay.
Yikes!
While it is good to give a patient some familiarity and comfort in the hospital, the weirdness of this one is just off the charts.
I mean, you ain't wrong, but what the hell? Okay, let's be real. If that ever hit them like the regular market, that would not sell at all. They would be like worried about the whole like, oh god, our kids are gonna be passed out and it's all Nintendo's fault. It's like, why? Like, I get it was medical stuff, but yeesh. I mean, there are better ways to do that, but also, yeah, the design did not look great at all. Anyway, moving on.
And for number 7, the Amiibos. This one's a bit of a weasel call, as the Amiibos started very successfully, but in more recent times, sales have plummeted for the Amiibo, and I'd like to investigate why.
Yeah, Amiibo used to be much bigger. I recently found every single Smash Bros. Amiibo on sale at a game convention, but Toys to Life is a genre that died.
Yeah, I guess the Amiibo was meant to capitalize upon that Toys to Life fad, rather than ever be a long-term thing. Toys to Life is basically where a toy figurine can interact with a video game. Amiibo was similar. They were figurines, game cards, and plush toys that you could connect and play by tapping on your right Joy-Con. It unlocked new features, gameplay upgrades, new missions, character customizations, and character ability upgrades. It also saved your progress. So why'd the Amiibo's sales drop?
Well, the fad just ended and the Toys to Life market crashed. First to be discontinued was Disney Infinity, then LEGO Dimensions, and the last to go was Skylanders.
The novelty of interactive gameplay started really high, but when that novelty wore off, sales plummeted and the market crashed badly. As well as kids just getting over the novelty of it, the clutter started to show too.
Oh, I know. As a plush collector, I know how the clutter can get overwhelming. There were so many figurines, plushies, and cards. Just look at some of the hardcore collectors. It's staggering.
I can't imagine what that's like. As a minimalist, I would never want that much clutter, and I could never keep all that stuff in my house.
Yeah, I mean,
think
I
it was
still have 3
off-putting
to this
parents too, having to collect so many figurines just to get some gameplay bonuses. When you're dealing with toys, they have a tendency to go in and out of popularity quickly. A child will often just get bored and move on to the next toy. You can see the same thing in Teddy Ruxpin, Cabbage Patch Dolls, Silly Bands. Even I have fidget spinners and I used to use them all the time. They're still really cathartic, I really miss these. But now they mostly
it's
just
wrong.
sit in my drawer. They look cool though. You can still find Amiibos around, but they're just not big sellers anymore. The price of Amiibos was another big factor. We could pay $12 to $25 for one figure or card.
And those are just singles. When you buy pairs or sets, prices get even steeper.
And to many gamers, these steep prices were just not worth it. Many would rather just save their money for the actual $60 to $80 game. Ultimately, with the Toys to Life novelty ending, with the clutter build-up and the expensive prices, we saw a massive
Yeah, like
drop
I said,
in the
glad
Amiibo
I
market.
stick to 3,
Hey,
'cause
thanks for
of-
helping out, Matt. Always good to see you, my friend.
Likewise, Josh. Glad to help.
And coming in at number 6,
Six?
the Wii U.
Wii U.
There's a good chance you've heard of the Wii U, but you probably
Actually
don't
had it at
own
one
one.
point.
If you do, my respects, you are a true Nintendo fan, because only 13 million Wii U's were ever sold. That may sound like a lot, but for comparison, the Wii sold 105 million consoles, and the Switch has managed to sell 114 million consoles. That's more than 100
Yeah, that's
million
bad.
extra consoles sold than the Wii U. I mean, obviously, the Wii U was designed to follow up and replace the Wii, with a few extra upgrades. I tend to think of it as the HD Wii, but there's a lot more to the Wii U than that. Yeah, it was the first console to support HD graphics, but it also had a massive controller the size of a console on its own. It was like a giant clunky DS, and sometimes you'd play the games on this controller. But one of my favorite parts of the Wii U was its backwards compatibility. Nowadays though, backwards compatibility is more of a foreign concept, as now gaming companies tend to just resell us the old games we already have in digital format. So why did the Wii U, this lovely unique console, fail? Well, there are a few points worth mentioning.
I think people
For
blame the
starters,
marketing.
the Wii U did not have a clear identity. Nintendo did their marketing so bad that when it came out, people thought the Wii U was an accessory to the Wii. Everyone had the Wii and Nintendo loves their accessories, so it made sense. The name Wii U didn't work much for it either,
Yeah,
as by calling
oops.
itself the Wii U, it didn't separate itself from the Wii as a new, improved, next-generation console. Their off-TV controller didn't really work as a handheld device either. People complained it was too big and bulky. This made gameplay for some people cumbersome and clumsy. It may look fine in my hands, but that's because I'm 6'4". To smaller
I got
gamers,
big
it was a
hands,
much
so-
more cumbersome and clunky console, particularly to kids. Plus, to actually play on the handheld, you had to be within range of the TV. So, say you wanted to use your toilet and keep playing a game, well, you had to make sure your TV was in range of your toilet, which hopefully it isn't, because it's important to find time to stop in your day when just using the loo. Have some moment of quiet. The gamepad also had a very poor battery life. I'd show you my gamepad, but the battery has run
dead.
out. Another big issue was there was a staggeringly small selection of high-profile games. Compared to the PS4 and the Xbox One, the Wii U had a very underpowered GPU, and in the age of ultra-realistic game graphics, you can probably imagine what this did for them. Developers just didn't want to create titles for the Wii U's limited hardware, so they didn't. I mean, I got my Wii U years after it was discontinued, and I had to look up several guides just to try and figure out what standout titles the console actually had. What sells a console is not the powers or the gimmicks of a console, but the games. If the console doesn't have some killer apps, the system will fail. Personally, I like playing my Wii U, but I bought it secondhand years after it was discontinued.
Also, these original Wii U ads were so cringe. I feel like they could have killed the console alone.
We'll make this quick.
Family time's dropping fast, people. Time to upgrade to Wii U.
Oh, jeebus, make it stop.
Yeah,
And
great.
at number 5 we have the
Everyone's
Nintendo
screwed it
64
over.
disk drive. It's hard to fully
why?
articulate just how monumental a failure this thing was for Nintendo. Let's put it this way. The original Super Nintendo sold 49 million consoles. The Virtual Boy sold 770,000 consoles, and that is a notorious failure for Nintendo.
bold.
The Nintendo disk drive, it sold 15,000
15,000.
consoles.
Wow.
Thus, of course, today they're worth $2,000 used on eBay. The drive was
Yeah,
developed
because people always
alongside
want, like,
the
gaming
Nintendo
history there.
64 as an add-on that could be plugged into the extension port. It allowed players to capture images from their TV, create 3D models and animations, and even make racing tracks for games such as F-Zero X. The drive was even able to connect to the internet in 1999. I was still dealing with my dial-up 56K modem back then. and some of my viewers weren't even alive yet. So for back then, a console having internet was really ahead of the curve. It had a dedicated online service
looks
called
like Japanese
Ramsnet that allowed
only.
users to share their
didn't get
creations
this
to
around the
others
States, I
online.
think.
At first, this was a highly anticipated add-on to the Nintendo 64.
Let me guess,
However,
when they got it-
got stuck in development hell, being delayed for years. It was first announced in 1995 on a game show, but fans were forced to wait through a 2-year delay. And back in 1996,
97.
2 years was a long freaking time in gaming. Back then, you couldn't even blink without a new, more advanced gaming technology coming out while you weren't looking. By the time the delays had passed and Nintendo was ready to release the drive, a lot of changes had happened in gaming, including Nintendo's horrendous failure with the CDI games, but more on that
Yeah,
debacle
more on that
later.
later,
The
eh?
PlayStation was selling fast, and it was making Nintendo look like the Stone Age. Sony was making use of the compact disc, a CD, a new technology at the time, believe it or not. So the magnetic discs of the N64 drive were completely redundant by the time Nintendo finally got past the delays. Yet somehow they still thought it would be a good idea to release the disc drive. Or maybe they knew the disaster they were sitting on and just tried to clean up for some of their losses. By the time the disc drive was flopping on the market, developers were cancelling games for it left, right, and centre. Because of this, the disc drive only managed to release 10 pieces of software before
10?
it was cancelled in 2001. These games included Mario Artist, RareNet Disc, which was obviously the software for the internet, and of course Kyojin no Doshin, which was described on IGN as painful. Painful. Yeah, I'm curious too. Let's give it a look.
64専用ソフト巨人のドシンに補助ディスクが登場。イジェクトボタンを連打してチッコ団結の成果が現れました。
I thought
Yeah, I'm
the
with you,
game
boo.
would be
I
at least
won. I run
palatable.
too.
I was wrong.
Let us
Yeah.
never speak of the game again. And
Please,
at number 4
no
we
more.
have the Wii Mini and the Game Boy Micro. By
What?
Jeebus, if
Wii
Nintendo
Mini?
can make a mini version of something, they'll do it. Nintendo Mini, Wii Mini, Game Boy Micro, DS Lite, Switch Lite, you name it. Some of these have been more successful than others, such as the Switch Lite. But the Wii Mini, it was just a disappointing mess. You see, the Wii was a ridiculously high-selling console. Even after 7 years, the console was still selling. It sold over 100 million consoles worldwide. So Nintendo tried to capitalize upon these sales by releasing the Wii Mini, a cheaper but far inferior version of the Wii, with many of the Wii's
how
features
inferior are we
removed.
talking about?
And it wasn't known for having that many features to begin with. They removed all internet capabilities, all GameCube controller support, all memory card ports. Even the ability to play GameCube games was removed. Any channel with internet had to be removed, such as the Everybody Votes channel, the Weather channel, the Nintendo channel, anything with internet had to go. So why make all these terrible changes? To reduce the price, apparently. The Wii Mini retailed at $99 US, which is certainly a cheap price for a console, but if a person doesn't
only for
want
Wii
it, it
games?
doesn't matter if it's $5. So why did Nintendo think anyone would want the downgraded version of the already underpowered Wii? Well, Nintendo's goal was to make the Wii cheap enough that someone could buy another Wii to put in another room of the house. But the Wii Mini commits perhaps the most heinous crime of all. It is ugly. Holy cow, is it ugly! Look at this garish, bright red and jet black. Why would a console be made to look so ugly? Who looked at this and thought it
Hi,
looks
Reggie.
good? Well, their reasoning was because the Wii Mini was
only
being
in
tested
Canada.
in Canada, and because Canada's flag is red, clearly the
With
Wii Mini
white?
needs to be bright red. I know.
But you
I
could have
don't
offered
get
a
the
little more
logic here.
color.
Then there's the
Sheesh.
Game Boy Micro, which sold pretty dang bad. Why
Okay.
though? Well, it was released the same time as the Nintendo DS. And yeah, the Game Boy Advance has some great games, but they were ancient at the time compared to the DS. But the Game Boy Micro was intended to capitalize upon the iPod mini trend. Basically, people were carrying around miniature entertainment systems in their pockets, similar to smartphones but purely for music and entertainment. No social media or misinformation, just entertainment. I know, it sounds like a simple, beautiful time in history. But despite its name, the Game Boy Micro actually played Game Boy Advance games. It also had 0 backwards compatibility, because I guess it'd be crazy of me to assume that Game Boy Micro played, Game Boy games. It also wasn't capable of using add-ons like link cables, wireless adapters, or connecting to your GameCube. And back in the day, those were lovely features, so it was a big loss. And even if people wanted to go back and play their old Game Boy Advance games, why not just pull out their Game Boy Advance SP? It was pocket-sized too. It folded up and everything, it was awesome. Hell, even if they had the original DS, that was backwards compatible with Game Boy Advance games. So with so many downgrades, with the DS original already out and the DS Lite on its way, the Game Boy Micro appeared to be a big failure for Nintendo.
And at number 3 we have the
someone
Nintendo Labo.
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 AKA the Toy-Con. I see what they did there.
So the Labo.
Labo.
I know, that's what I said. Labo.
Nintendo Labo.
Oh, the Nintendo Labo.
The Labo felt like a creative but underutilized flimsy product. Essentially, the Labo Toy-Cons were a series of accessory kits you could attach to your Joy-Con. So for example, the car Labo had a cardboard steering wheel you could attach to the Joy-Con. There was even the virtual reality set, which came with a set of cardboard goggles. And all of them were done with just simple cardboard. And the idea sounds good in theory, or at least it sounds cheap for Nintendo to produce. But if you have a kid or a niece or a nephew, you know one thing about them. They are machines of destruction, and anything not bolted down is going to be destroyed. For Nintendo, the gaming company with kids in mind, was cardboard really the best material they could come up with? Initially, the idea of Labos was very appealing to parents, but when they were released, for many, it felt more like a overpriced cardboard gimmick. You see, this cardboard accessory set was going to set you back around $60 to $70. I could literally buy the freaking game for that. Although a lot of kids were having fun, and there were a lot of satisfied parents, the general sales of Labo were just very low. So eventually, Nintendo just shut down the entire Labo website. But who cares what I think? I'm more curious what parents have to say. What about Neil?
I paid $60 for this. This is way too much for cardboard. My son had broken the visor on the first day. As a parent, I am really dissatisfied with this product.
Well, that's not an overwhelmingly happy customer. But to be fair, I did find a lot of happy customer reviews on Amazon. But there just weren't enough customers to warrant Nintendo keeping the Labo alive.
Nintendo Labo.
Well, I want to call it Labo. And what are you going to do about it? Huh? Oh, be right back. Can I help you? Ow!
And at number 2 we have Nintendo Online. Nintendo sold Nintendo Online with the slogan, "Enhance your gaming experience with Nintendo Online." Woo! In 2023, it is sold as an innovation to play multiplayer. It is such an innovation, in fact, that Nintendo is going to charge you a monthly fee to be able to have the privilege of playing your multiplayer console multiplayer.
You serious?
The consolation prize for charging every single person who owns a Switch a monthly fee to play their console online? You get a collection of old NES and Super NES games. Why should we have to pay a monthly fee to play these games? Couldn't we just buy them for a couple of bucks? Not just pay a monthly fee for the privilege to play them? The fundamental problem I have is this. I remember playing online for free on my Nintendo DS in freaking 2006. 19 years ago. I played Pokemon Diamond online all the time. In fact, I could chat, battle, and trade for free via Wi-Fi online. Now, in 2023, in order for me to play Pokemon Violet online, I need to pay a monthly permanent subscription fee. This feels unnecessary, money-grubbing, and stupid. Why have so many people been okay with Nintendo putting up a paywall for both kids and adults to just use the internet on the console they already paid for? Perhaps it's just because they don't have a choice if they want to use a Switch, but they do have the right to complain about it. And we're clearly not paying for quality, because online gameplay is glitchy, and the games will frequently drop out. To start with, connecting to the internet is long, slow, and cumbersome. It feels like I'm on dial-up again, just trying to connect my Switch to the internet.
Oh boy.
And even if you are connected, be prepared for those notorious bootings and glitches. Over the years, I've tried to get a few online games going with Pokemon Sword and Violet, but so often I would just get stuck on the connecting screen, or I would just not be able to see my friend online at all. So once kids have paid their monthly fee to be able to play with their friends on their Switch, can they play with their friends now? No, that would just be too easy. They then have to find each individual friend code of their friends, then add in a long numerical code in order to add them. Then maybe they can play an online glitchy experience with their friends that will probably drop out. I mean, I get the reason for friend codes. Nintendo added these codes so legally they're covered. Friend codes can minimize children meeting strangers online. It also safeguards these younger players from sharing their information online. But why? Why is it so difficult in 2023 to be able to play our consoles online? And if you dare end your membership, then the cloud will automatically delete all your saved data on your cloud. But it is apparently your fault for not giving Nintendo a constant monthly stream of your income. And look at the competition by comparison. PlayStation keeps your data for 6 months after your subscription ends. And Microsoft doesn't even charge you. If you want to play Xbox Live, it's free. They offer free use of cloud saves with no subscription at all. Steam does this too. I know, how could they not charge you a constant monthly fee for a game you've already paid for? And it's not like people have a choice, particularly in these times of social distancing. Often, if they want to play with their friends nowadays, they've got to play online. And Nintendo's stupid subscription is the only way. Nintendo Online is not a revolutionary idea. It's been done for free for over 20 years. But since 114 million people own Switches, what choice do they have? I guess people could boycott it, but then no playing online on your Switch. And before we get to number one, just a couple of quick honorable mentions. The Virtual Boy. I skipped this one on this list because I've talked about it before in the stupidest items ever made. Essentially, the Virtual Boy was the console that helped destroy the virtual reality movement. It arguably helped set virtual reality back several decades. It featured a heavy, uncomfortable head mount, it gave viewers a headache, it gave them sore eyes, and games could only be in red and black, any color you want, just so long as it's red. Steam has been trying to bring virtual reality back into popular culture with amazing titles like Half-Life Alyx, but a lot of damage was done to popular opinion with things like the Virtual Boy. And for now anyway, virtual reality is still more of a rare, expensive novelty, but I sure am hoping it comes back in my lifetime. And next we have 1-2 Switch. I know I haven't talked about any other games on this list, but this game, it just really stunk. I bought the Nintendo Switch on the midnight launch, and this was one of the 2 games I was able to get. But when I played it that night, I returned it the very next day. I loved Wii Sports, and I was anticipating some sort of Wii Sports experience. Instead, I got a clunky, boring game that was fiddly and nightmarish to play. I like the idea of a party game with some good mini-games, but the execution was rushed and abysmal. Anyway, on to number one.
Number one?
And of course, at number one we have the CDI. You really need the planets to align for a company to achieve the sheer level of terrible that this console managed to achieve. Not only is the CDI arguably the worst console that Nintendo has ever made, but they also accidentally created a new lifelong competitor. It was a serious Pandora's box situation, but the box contained Sony. Good for us consumers, bad for Nintendo. You see, originally, Sony had agreed to work with Nintendo to create the Nintendo Sony Disc Console. Of course, that never happened, because Nintendo had the brilliant idea to instead take on Philips for disc manufacturing, without telling Sony. They not only did this behind Sony's back, but they snubbed Sony at the Games Conference when they were meant to announce their project together. Now, understandably, Sony was really mad at this. Nintendo had messed with companies before. They'd certainly pushed around Sega from time to time, but Sony is huge. They produce just about every piece of electronic equipment you can imagine. Nintendo was about to find out, you mess with a huge conglomerate like Sony, they will be crushed. So Sony said, let's try and manufacture a game console ourselves. How hard could it be? And what do you know? The Sony PlayStation was born. And to think, if Nintendo had just shown basic human decency, Sony might have worked with Nintendo rather than becoming their most annoying rival in the console war. Was it worth it, Nintendo? Was it worth snubbing Sony so you could work with Philips on the CDI? Well, without CDI, we wouldn't have Legend of Zelda Wand of Gamelon now, would we? The true original source of all YouTube poop in the universe. By their blunderous decisions, it could be argued that Nintendo created a great deal of YouTube poop on the internet, and you may find that either wonderful or terrible.
Whatever I see, I shall devour.
What's so astounding about the CDI Zelda games is watching the cutscenes, you can almost feel the temperature drop in the room. It's like that feeling you get when you're at the top of a roller coaster and are about to plummet in terror. How Nintendo created something so astronomically awful to look at is one of the great mysteries of modern science.
Why is everybody so twisted and scary?
And you've probably heard the complaints of Wand of Gamelon before from people like AVGN, so I won't go into too much detail. But the control layout makes no sense, and it's incredibly uncomfortable and frustrating to use. The challenge for many gamers in Wand of Gamelon is not beating the game, but wrestling the controls in order to do it. Your average Zelda fan game has far more coherency in game design than this thing ever did. I mean, there were a collection of other games on the CDI. There was Dark Castle, an inferior version of an already terrible original. I guess The Apprentice looked harmless enough. Just a simple platformer about a wizard's apprentice. We've got interesting novelties like Burn Cycle. Definitely not good, but interesting. It's a sort of shooter game with live action footage. And of course, Hotel Mario, the other source of all YouTube poop in the universe.
I don't see that, so sketchy.
It's been one of those days.
Perhaps the CDI remains the main reason Nintendo almost never voice acts in their games almost 20 years later. I mean, after hearing their two flagship games have voice acting this nightmarish, I can't say I blame them. Anyway, with Nintendo's old competitor Sega in the ground, Nintendo got greedy. They snubbed Sony at the altar, thereby resurrecting that original ferocious Sega rivalry, but born anew in Sony. And that concludes our search for Nintendo's most ambitious failures. If you think I missed one, or you have any thoughts on these failures yourself, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I might see you next time.
Today's member question.
Well, I gotta say, that was interesting to say the least. Yeah, those were pretty big. I'm kind of surprised that Nintendo, hearing the feedback's like, yeah, maybe we should really dial back on the price, but no, they can still the same nowadays. I don't know. Seems kind of dumb in a way, but I can't really defend it. But I can't really knock it. Like, I mean, I get it. They try to like charge you, but they gotta make money somehow. But I guess it's because they sold the Switch so cheaply. Maybe they're trying to recoup losses, but I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time, like, subscribe for more. I'll see you guys around. Adios.